This podcast contains discussion around depression and suicide. If you're experiencing feelings of sadness, depression, or thoughts of self-harm, stop and seek help now. There is someone waiting to talk to you right now on Lifeline's crisis hotline, 13 11 14, or call 000.
This podcast may also contain unintentional coarse language and political incorrectness.
Welcome to Season 2 of You Wouldn't Be Dead for Quids podcast with Graham Cotter, the Augustella fella. This is episode 2. I'm Ruth Geis and I'm here with Graham today to talk about addictions. Graham, how are you doing today?
Be dead for Quids.
Oh, that's what I like to hear. So today we are talking about addiction. Graham, what have you been addicted to?
Well, lots of addictions over the years. Probably cigarettes and alcohol to a certain extent.
Yeah, so the most common ones are nicotine addiction, gambling, alcohol, drugs, food, sex. There are many, many crutches in many, many different forms. I myself was a smoker for far too many years, but I had finally managed to quit 6 years ago, maybe. I think where we need to start is to look at what addiction is in the first place. So there's a couple of aspects to addiction, isn't there?
Yes, there is, Ruth. There's a chemical aspect of it, which is a physical aspect of what the addiction does to the actual self.
So that's in particular the nicotine, alcohol, drugs. Yep.
And the other is the emotional aspect of it, what that addiction brings to the emotional part of your life. So definitely two aspects.
So trying to fill that gap.
Yeah.
I know for me with smoking, I know exactly how it started because in school I was very much, smoking is disgusting, it's terrible, you shouldn't do it. I was always in my friends' faces saying, as they were heading off down the back of the oval to have fag, I'd be like, oh, don't do it, it's not good for you. Can't believe you're doing it. And then I went to a pub when I turned 18 and my initial thought was, so what is it we do here? What happens? It's like, so we drink. Okay, I'll have a rum and coke, Bundy and coke, thanks very much. And apparently we smoke. That's what we do because I had no idea what we did there. And so that's to fit in, that's kind of how I started smoking. And then, 20-something years on. But that's where I started because I guess my emotional addiction was fitting in. And I swear that if I had been stronger at that point perhaps, if I had stuck with the idea of like, I have no idea what you do here or what we're supposed to do here, if I had have stuck with that, I would have had a very different life. Probably a bit more boring. Might be the addiction talking.
Addiction talking.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But I would have had a very, very different life had I actually been able to look at that back then. But I know it was social insecurity that got me there in the first place.
What our minds respond to the words we say and the pictures we make. So it's what you tell yourself. A perfect example. In my case, I smoked for 30 years and I started smoking when I was 13 years old. But my older brother smoked, my dad smoked, so it was just one of those, it's one of those things. Quitting's easy. I did it hundreds of times over that period of time. So
I thought about it hundreds of times, but only probably tried a handful. The one thing that really helped me, as you say, we're talking about that there's the chemical addiction component and the emotional addiction component. I knew that, nicotine stays in the body for 3 days, but after that it is gone. But still, it was the emotional addiction that kept me coming back, that thing that I felt that I was missing, that I needed to fulfill or to. But yeah, so the emotional side of it is potentially the much harder side of things.
Oh, definitely. There's a number of aspects of it. It's more often than not, it's buried in there somewhere. the addiction's just manifests itself as part of that, what you're lacking. And in case with a cigarette, it would have been fitting in the same as you. So,
And that's sort of social anxiety.
Yeah.
What do I do? What do I...
Monkey see, monkey do. And
I've got nothing to say, so I'm going to stick a fag in my mouth
yeah. Oh, well.
and blow out smoke
Or
instead of hot air.
or get drunk and feel yourself, and everyone laughs at you. So at the time it's funny, but the next day it's silly it was. But but by the same token, unless you address that emotional aspect of it, case in point, I'll give you two examples. One, a young lass who smoked and endeavoured with the rapid transformational therapy to uncover the root cause of that. It was when she was a little girl, she loved her grandfather so much, and when she sat on his lap, he was smoking, and she had that connection of the cigarettes and connection to her grandfather, who she loved very much, and addressed that problem and realised that her grandfather wouldn't want her to smoke, and she could still have that connection without having a cigarette. The other aspect of it is, finding the reason to give up, and another lady I did a session with, and she'd been smoking for a lot. Her physical health wasn't good, but she seriously wanted to give it away, and had tried all different ways. But when we made the connection, is what was important to her, seeing her grandchildren and her great grandchildren grow up, or having a lung buster for her. It was so we changed that. What was more important to her was to see her children grow up than having that cigarette. And the biggest challenge with anything that we do in our lives is that one of the rules of the mind is that it'll always move us from the unfamiliar. So quit and whatever it is. Your mind, keep nagging at you, telling yourself all these lies to trick yourself, your mind, to trick you into picking that cigarette up or picking that drink up or going to have that next hit or whatever. So
I think the other thing we tend to do is you think you've got to sort it out yourself, but problem shared is a problem halved, particularly with rapid transformational therapy. A problem shared is a problem gone, but potentially.
Yeah. Because unless you address the root cause of why.
And it does take help to uncover that.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, because it's buried in there. How we're programmed is that first 7 years of our lives, and more often than not, those addictions are to fill the love that you didn't receive as a child, and just feeling just totally not enough, and
filling a void.
And a lot of times those addictions like alcohol and drugs, it's a means and a way to stop the pain. You're not feeling those feelings when you're drunk or you're on a high. So.
The other thing about addiction, the only person who can make the decision to stop is yourself.
If you reach that point, like in my case, I smoked for 30 years, and then I got bowel cancer, and I knew it was part of the reason why, along with mainly due to stress and the lifestyle that I was living at that time over a long period of time. I continued to smoke even though I knew I had to stop, because at the same time, a relationship of 20 years and all sorts of things. When I was ready, I actually went and seen a hypnotherapist, and I haven't had a cigarette since. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't say that the craving doesn't in certain situations, like when you're having a beer sometimes, and you think, oh. But it's the same with any sort of addiction. It's being able to have a reason, and sometimes that reason is self and the people that may have hurt you as a child or whatever, and just say, well, I really don't want to be in this space anymore. I need to let go of the emotional aspect of it that's holding me, keeping me in this addictive, needing to be addicted to blot out the pain or for whatever reason. The price of cigarettes nowadays is...
Oh, yeah, and there's
it's a good enough reason. Same with alcohol and drugs, like heartbreaking stories that you hear where drugs have destroyed families.
But at the time, as you say, if you're addicted, you're not thinking about that, because you've got that chemical addiction and deep down you've got that emotional connection somewhere that's keeping you there.
Yeah.
Really interesting subject, really difficult. There's no one answer for people at all. If there is something you want to have a chat to Graham about, then, by all means, you can book in a free consultation with him for, jump on Zoom for 30 minutes and see whether, Graham might be able to help with whatever situation you currently find yourself in. You just need to go to kissbusiness.com.au and look at what is rapid transformational therapy, and it will take you so you can actually book in. You can also follow Graham, so Graham Cotter, the Augathella fella, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube. That wraps up episode 2. Graham, what do we have on the cards here for episode 3?
I guess probably we'll move into the big picture, Ruth, and are you living a full life?
And I think this is such a big question. It mightn't be just episode 3, it might be episode 4 as well. It will be part 1 of a reality check. Are you living a full life? So looking forward to that one. Graham, stay well, and I will see you in episode 3.